Welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast. Today, our special guest is Karen Seltz. Karen is a spiritual coach and TV host. We talk about spiritual growth and how leaders can access their inner being. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast. I'm Dr. Tracy Christofferson.
And I'm Michelle Trosett.
We are life and business besties, leadership coaches and mentors, and polarity intelligence experts. We're the authors of Polarity Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership, and co-founders of Missing Logic.
We are here to help high-achieving leaders break through leadership norms that cause them suffering at work and home. If you're looking to elevate your leadership, increasing your productivity, effectiveness, and impact, and manage your health and well-being, spend quality time with those you love, and live your best life, then you are in the right place.
Our goal in this podcast is to equip you with new ways of thinking and practical and tactical strategies for succeeding at work and thriving in life. Think of this podcast as your weekly dose of personal and professional development so you can reach your full leadership potential, create a life you love, and be what we are calling a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable or true leader.
If you are ready to learn and laugh a little, let's get started. Welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast with Michelle and Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy.
And I'm Michelle.
And here we are talking with an incredible human being.
Yes. You know what? It just is always a reminder to me that every single one of us humans has an incredible personal journey.
Yeah, we do. And we're influenced so heavily by the people in our lives, the things that we experience. And then you're, really, it's all a part of your path.
It is.
It's all a part of your path and your journey to who you're meant to be and who you become as an individual, as a leader. And I think it's just, becoming aware of the influence of your past and your experiences on who you are and who you can be.
Right. And where you start doesn't mean that's going to be where you end up.
No.
And we certainly learned that from Karen today.
Yes, we did. Karen's just certainly a free spirit, full of energy, fun. And it was just it was great to chat with her and to learn her story today.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Karen to you, and then we can listen to the interview. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. Karen Seltz has a master's of education in counseling and is a sacred purpose embodiment coach, an intuitive spiritual channel, a certified life coach, licensed brain gym practitioner, master leadership coach, energy healer, and she has her own TV show as well, which we've been guests on.
Yes.
Just have to say that. She supports her clients to overcome limiting beliefs, release stored trauma, and become aware of and shift their subconscious programs so they can identify and embody their true purpose and share their gifts with the world to create the impact and income they desire. And she does this through her framework, the Secret Subconscious Reboot. So without further ado, here's our interview with Karen. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the TRU Leader Podcast. And Karen, a special welcome to you, my friend.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here.
We are.
Yeah. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Guaranteed.
Oh, and I just already know we're going to have you back because, my gosh, girl, like, what don't you do? You have a plethora of specialties, and you're a spiritual coach, you're a leadership coach, you are a sacred purpose embodiment coach. I mean, holy moly, like, what don't you do? It's just so exciting, right? It's so exciting. We could talk about a million different things, but we only have a certain amount of time today. So you're going to have to come back. But let's start with kind of a little bit about your journey, and let's just focus on your path around being a spiritual coach and kind of what led you down that path to get to that place.
Oh, interestingly enough, my spiritual journey was I would say spiritually shamed as a child. My parents weren't really religious. I stopped going to church when I was 7. But they sent me to a Christian summer camp. And every year I would go and I would read the Bible and I would get saved and I'd come home and the first year and I told them all about it and they laughed. They laughed so hard. And then every year when I went, they would say, "Oh, did you get saved again?" And they had a chuckle. So I learned at a very young age it was not safe to talk about my spiritual beliefs. So I was like a closeted Christian for a long time. And then as life unfolded, I got married. I was still a practicing Christian. And then I had my second child who was born with a whole host of medical issues. And I couldn't deal with it. I mean, I always had this thing, like they say God will only give you as much as you can handle. And I'm like, I don't think so. I cannot handle this. And I was literally contemplating suicide, but my husband at the time was an alcoholic. And I'm like, I cannot leave these babies with him. I just can't do it. So my mind was like looking for other solutions to self-soothe and to deal because I really felt like I had zero control. By the time my daughter was 1, I had another child that was like 19 months old. And by the time my daughter was 1, my second daughter, she had 20 different medical specialists. And she was about to have a major surgery where they took half of her skull out of her head and reshaped it and put it back in. And I was so freaked out. And long story short, or short story long, I don't know how you want to say it, but I became an addict. And my drug of choice was sex. So I know this is not where we planned on going, but you never know. So I started like escaping through like these activities with other people that were not my husband. And during that time, I became an atheist. I'm like, there's no way, if there were a God, there's no way he would have let this happen. There's no way. And if there is a God, I don't want him seeing what I'm doing right now. So I just hid. And it wasn't until like everything kind of came to a head and I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm destroying my life. And I got into 12-step. And, you know how that goes. Like, believe in a power greater than you. I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't into that at all. I'm like, the God that I knew was very shaming, very judgmental. And I wasn't down for that. But I met through some other groups, really, some spiritual people that taught me about a different kind of God, a different kind of spiritual force that was within me and that wanted me to be happy and was not judging me ever, that didn't believe in sin even. And I'm like, okay, I'm down with this. This sounds like my kind of religion. So I started studying these books called The Way of Mastery and A Course in Miracles. And it just resonated as truth in my soul. So accepting, so loving of everyone. And the practice of looking at everybody as innocent and seeing them through the eyes of this loving God, instead of judging them, instead of thinking like, what can they do to me to hurt me? Or what can they do for me because I feel like I need something? So it was like kind of that whole process of like breaking, everything had to break down first in order for me to become open to what I consider to be the truth of all of us, that we are gods in the flesh. Like we have all the power we could ever need or want within us, but we're not taught about it. And we're taught to look outside of ourselves. And it's hardwired into us to look outside of ourselves for acceptance. And it starts with our parents, right? We learn that if we don't please our food bringers and be a good girl or a good boy, we could die. They won't feed us, we will die. And, we become programmed from such a young age to be people pleasers in order to survive. So that's the long story.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. What a story.
Yeah.
And, so true for so many that, you have to break down to break through sometimes, right? Things have to kind of come to a place where, you really come to that place of awareness of you can't continue. And just the opening up is what I heard in your story, just that opening up for there has to be something more. And just creating a space for that to come to you, right? For that
Yeah.
message to come in whatever way it needed to come. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What a journey.
Yeah.
What a journey.
Yeah.
Well, didn't know about your daughter either.
Yeah.
Well, that is a remarkable story as well. You know, Tracy and I, we come from healthcare background, so we're really well grounded on the whole body, mind, and spirit connection. But we're always learning too. Like it's a journey, right? We're always on a spiritual journey ourselves, learning. And since we work with leaders, Karen, what would you say to a leader who is ready for a spiritual awakening or wants to deepen their spiritual journey, and maybe a bit too how that can even help with their leadership to kind of open up the spiritual side of themselves?
Yeah, it's very personal, I think, for everyone. And just the fact that they desire it means it's meant for them and they're ready for it. So somebody who's listening to this and they're like, if they're not up for it, they're going to turn this off. But if something inside of you is like, yes, I want that. And what has happened, for me is a sense of self-acceptance, because I grew up thinking like certain parts of me were not lovable. And I like ripped those pieces out and stuck them in a closet, and they were rearing their ugly head. I mean, I was like tantruming as an adult. I'm like, I wanted somebody to love all of me. And I also did this other practice. It comes from this book called Real Love by Greg Bear. And it's really learning to tell the truth about those parts of you that you think are unlovable. And I realized that you are on the hook and you can never fully feel loved and accepted unless you show people all those parts that you're scared to show them. And it opens up such freedom when you do that. Now, for me, I was married to a preacher's kid. And I used to have the parents over for dinner every Sunday. I would cook. I had these 2 kids. And I was literally living a double life. And when they found out, my world came crashing down. And my spiritual mentor at the time said, "This is perfect." I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe for you, but my gosh, I'm so ashamed. I'm so embarrassed that they know what I've been doing. And she's like, well, they get to put their money where their mouth is. If they're truly loving, they're going to love you. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I don't know. I mean, it felt like death, and it was. It was the death of the part of me that was wearing masks my entire life, trying to please everybody. And I grew up like that, like changing what I was going to say so that my parents didn't hit me, for example, or so the kids at school would accept me or laugh at my jokes or whatever it was. But I grew up like constantly needing that validation that I was okay, that I was lovable, that I was enough. But I didn't ever feel it until I started to bring back those pieces that I had tucked away in the closet somewhere. And those pieces looked like saying no to people. What? Like that was an entirely new concept. Stating my preferences. I didn't do that for a very long time. And as a leader, I think it's really important to encourage people to share what they really want and for you to do it without attachment to what other people are going to do in response. And that was the other thing. Like I needed so much to be accepted by other people that I only would share my preferences if I knew people were in line with it. So there's a lot to it, but go ahead. Do you have another question?
No, I'm just
I
listening to
think
you.
it's so true. And I think what I'm hearing you say, right, so much of this comes from inside, right? It comes from the past. And all of us have been programmed in a number of different ways, right? From our teachers, our religious leaders, our communities, like whatever container context you've grown up in has an influence on you, right? And so it's about, for me, it's kind of like getting connected to yourself again, to the spirit, the true essence of who you are as a person, and peeling back the layers of that onion, right? To discard what doesn't serve us. There's so much, from our history that we've conformed to maybe that really isn't in alignment with who we are, right? As people, as leaders, right? We can be influenced by those that have led us as well, right? And so what I'm hearing you say is just it's kind of like that revolution, that awareness, and then just taking the steps, the baby steps one at a time to figure out, okay, how do I move through this? How do I move beyond who I have been into who I really am? And be okay with showing that to the world, right? That's the spirit, the essence of us.
Yeah. And my advice on that is to find a safe person. Like just start sharing a little bit of truth. We call it like, don't vomit on people, ask for permission. You don't like say, okay, here's all my stuff starting at infancy. Like you don't, that is like, it's like an assault, it feels icky if someone does that. And I think we've all been on the receiving end of that. It doesn't feel good. So I ask for permission. Like, would it be okay if I shared something really personal that I'm really afraid to share? And let them decide. And one of the words that I use is, do you have capacity? Do you have capacity to hear this? Or do you have capacity to support me? Because then it's not personal. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with their level of openness. And if they're dealing with a bunch of crap in their lives, they might not have capacity at that moment, but they might later. And what I've found when I'm willing to do it this way is it, number one, it gives people choice. Like, okay, do I want to hear this? Am I ready for it? Or are my kids screaming in the next room? Is something else demanding my attention? The other thing is once you do it, it gives that person permission to do the same. Because every time I've shared something, especially along my journey with recovering from addiction, some people are absolutely shocked at my willingness to share certain details. They're like, I cannot believe you told me that. And one woman that I actually met in leadership training, it opened her up to a whole area of her life that she had shut off. And she felt a lot of shame in her life around anything sexual. And the fact that I would talk about sex openly, especially things in this society that seem very shameful, it just opened her up to exploring all kinds of things for her and to admitting the truth about what she really desired in life. So you never know what's going to open up for other people when you're willing. It takes a heck of a lot of courage, I tell you that, the first few times. Yeah. So when you're willing to share, it just really opens it up for others, gives them permission.
Well, and I think I like what you said about, choose a safe person or a safe space, right? And so I think that, you want to have that some fundamental relationship in place where you actually have trust, right? And that's essential to the journey.
Yeah. And one other option is a complete stranger. You could meet a stranger and there's nothing on the line then. If you tell them, who cares if they reject you? Like, especially if it's somebody you're never going to see again. So for some people, that's easier to practice like that. So whatever, I mean, for me, it's all about trusting. Okay, what feels in alignment for me? And in the moment, if life presents you with a person and the perfect opportunity to share this, take it. Why not?
Yeah.
Just don't tell them your name.
Well, you know what? It's funny. You're reminding me of something because I've been watching this show and this young girl, she's gay. She wants to come out, but she's really nervous to come out to her peers and a new school that she's going to. So her uncle takes her to a drive-up burger joint and he says, tell the clown. Say it to the clown because, just say it for the first time. Get it over with. Just say it. So she just screams it out. And then, of course, it just released all of this tension that she had about sharing something, so personal like that, but that she was nervous about. And then after that, the floodgates were open. And I thought that's such a great thing, And of course, the clown goes, okay. All right. You want fries with that?
I have gay fries.
That was so funny.
Oh, that is
but
funny.
It was a great
that
example of that,
Exactly.
Tell a stranger, tell somebody that it doesn't matter. Just say it to have the practice of it, to get that first step out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also heard you say too, Karen, like there was a start to your journey, and just in knowing your story, it just continues to evolve, right? That's why the spiritual growth aspect is so awesome. And sometimes I find myself relearning something I learned before. So it is a continuous process.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's so personal, to your point, right?
Oh yeah.
For some
Yep.
people, a spiritual path is to a specific religion or a specific practice. For others, it's more open. So it really is about what matters to you and what connects with you, right? But it can be such a powerful force in your life, whatever it is that you choose, right? To connect with yourself and to connect with something bigger than you, right? Than who you are in your human body. And yeah, it's such a personal journey, but so worth it. So worth it.
100%. And nobody else can tell you what to believe, and you get to choose. I mean, that's the thing about my path, is like I picked and choose what felt in alignment with my soul and like resonated as truth.
Yeah.
And what led me to doing what I do now, which is mainly I do trauma release work, is I was sober for about 3 years, and I went through this program. It was kind of like an intensive trauma release program. It was like a 4-hour thing. When I went back to a 12-step meeting, although I was sober for 3 years, I went to introduce myself, and I think you guys know how it goes. Hi, I'm Karen, Emma. And I'm like, my body stopped speaking, and I'm like contemplating. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, it was completely gone from my identity. Like, there was no addict left. Mm-hmm. And I never went back to another meeting, and that was 6 years ago, and I'm still sober.
That's great.
And it's just gone. The desire to do anything like that would degrade me, is completely gone. And I realized that the root of addiction is unresolved trauma. And if I could change my entire identity in 4 hours, I'm like, I must do this for other people. And the things that are holding most people back, all that programming is in our subconscious minds, and 95% of everything we think, feel, believe, and do comes from the subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. Now, if you ask any adult, like, are you at choice when you do anything? Like, yep. And then if you go through it, like if I say, okay, did you choose to wear your outfits today? You would say, what?
Yes.
Yes. So then I would say, okay, so last night you were thinking, okay, what would be a good outfit to wear today?
No.
Michelle
sent me instructions.
Right? Like, probably not. Probably you walked in your closet and you're like, okay, this one looks good. And you put it on.
Right.
And so you weren't really at choice. Like, there was something deeper within you that motivated that action that had nothing to do with your conscious mind. Mm-hmm. And it's like that with almost everything. And we shame the heck out of ourselves because we should, in quotes, have done better. We should have known better, whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's like telling a child, like, be taller. Like, if there's a should, there has to be a could.
Yeah.
So, and the subconscious mind only thinks in the present tense. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna do a little science here. Is that okay?
Sure.
Sure.
Go for it.
Sure.
So when you feel an emotion, the purpose of that emotion is your mind is trying to get you to take an action. The problem is it wants you to take an action about something that happened maybe 30 years ago. Like, don't get hurt 30 years ago. You're like, wait, what? Because you have this reticular activating system that's constantly scanning the environment. And if you have a lot of traumatic or difficult experiences that are unprocessed, and I'll give you an analogy for that in a minute, then you're going to be tripping over these a lot. And the reticular activating system is the filter, right? And it's filtering millions of bits of information per second. And it's saying, okay, does this remind me of anything difficult or traumatic I've ever experienced? Because we must survive. So if it reminds it of anything that you've experienced that was really unpleasant, it's going to kick on the sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response, fight, flight, or freeze. And the purpose of that is to get you to take an action. And usually it's about something that happened a heck of a long time ago, and there's nothing to be done. So that's why so many people walk around stressed out, because there's nothing to do. But the mind thinks that something either just happened, is happening, or is about to happen. So it's ready. So what happens when that kicks in? Well, if you're angry, anger is an emotion in response to a perceived threat. Well, your jaw gets really strong, your arms get strong, and you're ready to fight or bite somebody. So when's the last time your boss called you in and you're like, oh, I'm going to bite you. I'm going to bite you. Like, it's not useful.
No.
Like in humans, it's almost never useful to have a strong jaw to bite someone. And then fear is a physiological response to a perceived threat. In both cases, in anger and in fear, your brain gets dumb and your limbs get strong and your jaw gets strong. So when you're afraid, your legs get really strong so you can run really fast. Your boss calls you in and you think he's going to fire you. Are you going to run? Probably not. Maybe. I don't know. So that response is not really useful in human beings. In animals, it works perfectly. In the wild, it does exactly what it's meant to. The fear kicks in, the zebra outruns lion, and the moment the lion catches a slower zebra, his parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, and he's resting. And you say, hey, that lion really scared the crap out of you. He's like, what lion? Like, it's gone. Whereas, you run into somebody you went to high school with who's really angry. You're like, man, what's going on? Well, remember in high school when my boyfriend cheated on me? So mad about that. You're like, oh, wow. How long ago was that? 30 years ago. How's that working for you? I mean, and it's not her fault. That's the thing. It's not her fault. The mind hasn't processed it. It gets stuck. Those traumatic experiences get stuck in there like big glops. And in order to let them process and filter, we get to do some things. Yeah. So that's what I do, like quick processes, and we get those to filter. Yeah. And then the brain moves them into permanent storage instead of, it's like if your brain was a room or a house, all of those traumatic memories that weren't all the way processed get stuck in the hallway. And you're constantly like climbing over boxes and tripping. And, it's not fun. It's not a fun way to go through life. Whereas you process it and then, it puts it in storage in the basement. And then you can feel free to move about the cabin.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Well, and some of us don't even know. Right. And what might appear to not be like, I think sometimes people think traumatic is like something massive, right? But you can be traumatized by something small. It just depends on when it happened, how it happened, what it was based on your context. And sometimes we're not even aware that we haven't processed something. So I think it's just, and then we build up these beliefs about these things. So let's talk a little bit about beliefs, because we work with individuals and leaders that really want to be thriving and resilient and unstoppable, and to get there, and to really practice from that place as that kind of leader. There's some beliefs sometimes that you have to let go of. There's things that hold you back and keep you from going forward. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts about beliefs, how they might limit leaders or individuals, and anything that you've done in your work around beliefs.
Yeah, that's a really important concept. So it's really interesting. The conscious mind doesn't fully form until kids are like 7, 8, sometimes older. So when these events happen before that, they have to mean something about us. That's it. That's the only option we have. So if mommy and daddy get in a fight, we caused it. If our house burned down, that's because we were bad. I mean, we make these meanings, and those go with us into adulthood. So I'm going to give you an example from my childhood. So as an adult, I was in outside sales. And I could not pick up the telephone to make a cold call to save my life. I was terrified. I could walk into a place and say, hey, is this person here? And, be fine. But picking up a phone, I was terrified. I was frozen. I'm like, I could not do it. And after I did this trauma release program, it hit me like, oh my gosh, I'm not afraid to pick up the phone. And I know exactly where this came from. So I grew up in a chaotic household where I never knew when I was going to get hit. So I was always reading people's faces. And I'm like, okay, if I say this, am I still safe? And if there was like a little, any facial thing that meant, oh, someone's getting mad, I would like veer. I'd bob and weave to stay safe. So on the phone, I couldn't see anybody's face. And logically, it makes zero sense that somebody could physically harm me over the phone, right? It makes no sense. But that was something that I carried from that environment. So the beauty about this particular type of trauma work I do, you don't have to know what caused it. You don't have to go into the big T trauma. You don't have to do any of that. And we're very careful not to put somebody into a trauma response where they're like rocking and in the actual experience again. Like I'll ask somebody about it, like cause the emotion for 3 seconds. Okay, we're done with that. And then I bring them back to the present moment. When you do these processes just a few times, your subconscious mind learns how to clear trauma on its own. So you don't have to go and clear every event. You don't have to be in therapy for the rest of your life, retelling the same, painful memories, but making them just a little bit better each time, so you get more sympathy. And digging those trenches deeper and deeper into the brain, because that's what we do. That's how we are wired. You talk about it for a minute, you clear it. It's like all those glops can then filter and be stored. But your brain learns how to do this. So while you sleep over the next 30 to 60 days, your brain will go through your Rolodex. It goes through that hallway and starts like, okay, let's do this one today. And then it just puts it in storage. So then you have so much more available energy. So you can be creative. You can actually be present in the moment without worrying, is somebody going to hit you?
Yeah.
Or you can also take on long-term building projects. Like you can grow a baby. Like if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, it is not the time to go within and meditate. It's not the time to repair your cells. It's not the time to release any type of, homeostasis type chemicals, the ones that rest and digest or repair.
Yeah. Yeah. You're too busy running.
Yeah. You have to survive.
Well, you don't have
That's
your sympathetic nervous system is in high alert, right? It is the driver in those moments. So you don't have access to anything else, right? Until you
Yeah.
move
And
through
imagine like when you clear things, then your mind has fewer things outside of you that when it's filtering, it's not going to find things anymore to trigger you. So you're going to have all your energy available to you, which it's shocking to people. Like, wow, I wake up with energy. I don't even need coffee. I'm happy for no reason. I don't snap at people. My mind attaches value to things that are good to have done. So sometimes the other thing with the subconscious mind is anything that's unknown to you, it attaches like danger. Uh-oh, that's scary. So that's why this is a terrible example, but it it definitely proves the point. If you know any women that have been in abusive relationships, that's why they don't leave, because their subconscious mind says, this hasn't killed you. It is safer than the unknown, because that could kill you. Being on your own could kill you. Being with someone else could kill you. So this is safer. You stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about keeping yourself safe.
Yeah. Well, that brain's wired to do that, right? And it was very effective back in the day, when we were being chased by, saber-toothed tigers and all those kinds of things, right? But it's learned, definitely learned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's another thing that just popped into my head, and it's the way that people set goals is so contradictory to the language that the subconscious mind speaks. And then they find it really difficult to keep at it because they've said, okay, I am courageous. Okay, great. So think about it this way. Your subconscious mind is about as smart as a sheep. Or, in human terms, it's about as smart as a 4-year-old. So would you tell a 4-year-old, be courageous? It'd be like, what the heck are you talking about? You can tell a 4-year-old, stand on one leg, touch your nose, pat your head, rub your belly, be happy. Like, no, like that makes no sense. But we do that. We treat our subconscious mind as if it has a PhD in linguistics. It does not. It knows things that are actionable. So if you want to set a goal that actually comes to fruition easily without fighting, put it into action steps. So if it's be courageous, if you want to be courageous, what would a courageous person do? What are the actionable steps you can take? The subconscious mind understands those and will support you. Like, okay, here's an opportunity for you to do that thing. But it doesn't know what be courageous is or have more money in your bank account. You know, it doesn't know what that means. So it's not that it's against you. It's just you've been speaking Mandarin Chinese to it and it speaks, 4-year-old English.
Oh, that's a great point.
That is. So much to learn, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, like Tracy said, we'll have to have you back.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also want to share with our listeners that you have a TV show. And it's called The Irresistible You, Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. And Tracy and I had the honor of being guests on your show recently. It was a lot of fun. And just tell our listeners what inspired you to start a TV show and who are your typical guests? What types of programs do you have on your TV show? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so I started the show mainly for women that had been holding themselves back. Like they had this calling inside and they were afraid to stretch outside their comfort zone because the subconscious mind associates that with death or banishment or judgment, which all ultimately leads to death. So I wanted to give people inspiration and actionable steps they could take in order to get further along on their journey. So a lot of my shows are solo episodes. It's just me. I talk about meditation, spirituality, quantum physics, which I know I'm super nerdy about. I love it, which is essentially the science of possibility and creating things out of your thoughts and your emotions. And then I also talk a lot about the subconscious mind and how to work with it because you are not in control. Your subconscious mind is. So it's better to make friends with it and learn how it works. And so that's what I do. It's every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's live. You can join in the live studio audience on Zoom. And I do have guests that will bring something to my audience. Like, I love you guys so much, and what you brought was so valuable and so different from what I know. So things that will complement, what I do. I love it.
Yeah.
How do people find it? How do people find your show?
If you look up, let's see, you can Google my name and find it, but it's on Win Win Women Network. That's really hard to say fast. Win Win Women Network. And there's a join live. If you go on that page, it'll have all the shows that are on live right now. And you can join it like 2 minutes before the show starts.
Great.
But you can also look me up, KarenSeltz.com.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure we put a link in the show notes too to make sure people can find it. Oh, it's just been so much fun, right? There's so much that we could talk about. Like I said, we're going to definitely have to have you back on. And, again, you're bringing something to our show that we don't talk a lot about. We do some work on this in our TRU Leader Mentorship Program. But just really appreciate the opportunity to have this kind of conversation. And now we are at the point where we get the kind of the mystery questions, which we know you're going to roll with these very easily.
Oh, yeah.
So I love to play in the unknown.
Yeah, there we go. We know that. We knew that about you. So here we go. Question number 1 is, what is the craziest thing you've ever done?
Oh my gosh, that I can speak about?
Yeah, that you can tell and that you can speak about on the air. Okay, I don't want to be too racy.
Well, oh my gosh, of course my mind goes to all kinds of things. Oh gosh, craziest? Here's the thing, like I coached in a leadership program for over a year, and we were constantly stretching the students and stretching ourselves. I've done so many things. I have a really big comfort zone. The scariest thing I did was go on a glass floor elevator because it looks like you're going to, when you step on it, you're going to be in the basement in about a second, like 5 floors down. And I videotaped myself doing this, and I screamed like in a horror movie. I'm like, my daughter was with me. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed, Mom. But I was like videotaping myself. I'm like, I guess I have to look down now. I have to look down, don't I? And I'm like,
oh yeah, that would freak me out.
Yeah, it would.
It was awful, but I did it.
Good for you.
So that's like one of the recent ones. But I've done, lots of crazy things. They don't seem that crazy to me. Like I do karaoke sober, and I'm not that good.
I love that. Karaoke sober. Oh, that's a good one. There you go. That's the best one I've ever heard. Perfect. That was perfect. All right, Michelle's going to give us question number 2.
Oh, okay. Here's the next question. We love being guests on your TV show, but if you were a guest on any TV show that you could be on, what TV show would you be a guest on?
Ooh, a TV show. Well, I'm going to pick a podcast instead. I love Lewis Howes. He has this School of Greatness. And he's one of the first people I started listening to when I found podcasts. And his guests always inspire me so much. And his questions seem so grounded to me. And I love his vulnerability and his humility, like to share his story. Because he has, a really, really interesting story as well. So that's who I would pick.
Oh, awesome.
All right.
There I go, going off book, rogue again.
It's okay.
Hey, answer my own question.
We're open.
It is.
We're open. You go where you need to go. We're okay with that.
All right. Well, this has been an awesome interview, Karen. Thank you so much for joining us and having this incredible conversation. And our guests know how to find you now. And so please go out, check out her show, check out her website. And we will, is there any closing thoughts that you want to say before we wrap up today to our audience?
This has been so much fun. It's so amazing. One thing I would say to everyone is to start really trusting yourself. And I know it sounds like one of those trite things, but in order to build that trust, start doing exactly what you say you're going to do, even inside your head. So if you make an agreement with yourself, even inside your head, follow it, because that is the building blocks of self-trust. It builds your integrity, which actually means wholeness. And begin to bring back all those pieces that you may have rejected. And how you can notice those is start writing down your judgments about other people. Like, what are your judgments about them? And know that that is your subconscious mind. And those are the unconscious beliefs that you have about yourself. And then how can you love those? And when you can start to love those or even like them or tolerate them, you're on your way to wholeness again. And you don't need to look outside yourself anymore.
That's great.
Wow. What a great call to action.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And thank you to all of our listeners. We appreciate you all so much. And if you enjoyed our interview with Karen and the show, please share it with others. And please subscribe to our podcast. And if you want to watch us live, check out our YouTube channel at Missing Logic LLC. And we will see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.